Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to The Main Phase, episode 111, a Magic the Gathering podcast bringing you the best anecdotes and updates about your favorite game. This week we discuss pre-release, which happened a couple of days ago, and the new announcement that's shaking up the modern format. Stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to The Main Phase, episode 111, a Magic the Gathering podcast bringing you all the updated information about MTG all the time. I'm joined today with my co-host, JB. How you doing today, JB?
Debo, what's up, my man? I'm good.
Well, we just had a really fun weekend, didn't we?
I think so. I mean, we went to pre-release.
Yeah, pre-release, and it was a blast.
What guild did you choose?
I chose Simic. How about yourself?
Yeah, Simic. And it's interesting that we were both talking about choosing Gruul before we actually sat down, and then both ended up with a Simic guild pack.
Yeah. I usually like to go with those hardcore aggro lists when it comes to pre-release. Like last one was Boros, and I did a really good job with Boros.
Yeah.
I got top prize.
Yeah.
So I was leaning on Gruul. And then you actually talked me into playing Simic.
Yeah.
When we were sitting there. So I'm like, all right, I'll try it.
I mean, Guilds of Ravnica, I chose Selesnya and went 3-1, but I did not get top prize with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but there's a lot of people there.
Yeah.
And there was a
ton of people there.
Was a ton of people this last weekend too.
And it was the 1 o'clock on Saturday, not the midnight. Yeah. And there's probably like 50 people there?
I'd say closer to 70 people there.
I mean, that's a lot.
If you think about it, well, so over 80, we had 42 tables, and every one of them was full for that particular one. And then tables 43 on, they were using for another event that was going on there, Pokemon Pikachu. And then,
Yu-Gi-Oh was there too.
Yu-Gi-Oh was there.
Yeah.
And then they also had a 3 o'clock and a 6 o'clock that day. And there were people that were playing both of those pre-release events. Either way, great turnout, really a lot of fun. I think they did a good job with the pre-configured pack options, the clear pack with the stamped rare. What did you get as a stamped rare?
I got the Growth Chamber Guardian, which is a great card, just
Fantastic.
Not when all your other cards that you pull from all your packs don't have another Growth Chamber Guardian.
I got to tell you, it seems to me like that Growth Chamber Guardian is really, really going to see some standard play. That is an incredibly powerful card.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so for those who don't know, Growth Chamber Guardian is a 1 and a green for a 2/2. It has a Adapt 2 for 2 and a green. And then whenever a +1/+1 counter is placed on Growth Chamber Guardian, you can search up another copy of it from your deck and put it into your hand. That is an incredibly powerful effect. Even if you don't happen to use the adaptability and just using something like Adonis Climb to put a counter on it, that's incredibly powerful.
Dude, there is a number of shenanigans that could really take place with Growth Chamber Guardian. That Biomancer's Familiar for a green and a blue for a 2/2 taps. It says next time a creature you control would adapt, it adapts as if it has no +1/+1 counters on it. It is incredible. It also reduces the adapt costs of other creatures by 2 colorless.
Activated abilities
of other creatures. God, what an incredible card. That was one that I really wanted to see. My pool of cards in the Simic guild pack that I chose ended up being very highly adapt oriented. I mean, obviously, right? We got the Galloping Lizrog. We got, what is he? The Crocodile. He was Scuttle Gator, Scuttle.
Shark to Crab? Which one are you looking for?
No, it was 4 colorless, green, blue, and you could adapt 3 him. He was a defender, 6/6.
Oh, yeah. The Scuttle Gator.
Gator. Yeah, he was great, man. He ended up being fantastic for me, especially when I was able to, because the games go long and limited. Right. In sealed play, games go long. It's a battle of attrition across the board. Very rarely will you get blown out by some level of control. I mean, there's always creature interactions. And I think that's one of the real beautiful things about these pre-release events is everybody's on a level playing field.
Yeah.
Sometimes your rares really do kind of align extremely well. Sometimes you have just a beautiful sealed deck. But for the most part, you know that your opponent and you are going to sit down and play a game of Magic, and that your understanding and ability to play the game may outpace theirs, even if their deck, in terms of the 40 cards they constructed, is overall better than yours. But anyway, I had a lot of fun with it. I didn't end up doing as well as I wanted to, right? I wanted the 10 extra packs. I only ended up getting 4.
Well, you went 3-1.
I went 3-1. Yeah.
I mean, I went 2-2. I went with Teamer. My pool was not very great. The seeded pack was good with my Simic colors, but then everything else just kind of happened to fall more in that red-green Gruul side. And I didn't really see a whole lot of Simic support, so I had to kind of break out into into the Teamer. And for the most part, I did pretty good. The Scuttlegator, whatever it is, that was really good for me. The Lizrog, was amazing.
I actually thought that you did really well. I had an opportunity. The first game for me against Rakdos, which I'll tell you a story about Rakdos, the showstopper, here in just a second. But the first game for me went to 3, and then each of my next opponents was just a total blowout in my favor because I curved out really well all 3 matches to Zagana. That was my stamped rare, was Zagana.
Great rare.
Oh, man, she is incredibly powerful.
What's she do again?
She's 2 colorless, a green and a blue. She adapt 4s, right? For 4 colorless, a blue, and a green. You put 4 +1/+1 counters on her. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on them gains trample, and if you control a creature with a +1/+1 counter when she enters the battlefield, you draw a card. She was awesome. Okay, I am telling you, she was absolutely awesome. And then my top end, I elected to go pretty heavy and then run about 19 lands. Mm-hmm. And I happened to pull 3 of the uncommon Biogenic Mutation, which is 4 colorless, 2 green, distribute 3 +1/+1 counters among 1, 2, or 3 creatures you control, and then double the number of +1/+1 counters on those creatures.
It's a good card.
It is a fantastic card. And then, anyway, there were some games that I had where Zagana just, at one point I swung in for 26 trample with her. It was, lethal.
Great.
it was lethal. So. And there wasn't any measure of control that was able to just contend with that, because if they're burning their 1 control spell on trying to take down Zagana, the Scuttlegators were coming in. Or I'd adapt the Scuttlegators or any number of other creatures I had with adapt, and then pull those all over into the Galloping Lizrog and double the amount of those +1/+1 counters, and off we were to the races. Either way, sealed, great. There were some substantial standout cards. As a matter of fact, I went against Rakdos round 1. I lost that match. Opponent was able to resolve Rakdos, the showstopper. He's 4 colorless, a black and a red for a 6/6 flying trampler. He's a legendary creature. There is a guild named after him. And when he enters the battlefield, you flip a coin for each creature that isn't a demon, devil, or imp, and then you destroy each one of those creatures where the coin comes up tails. Well, my opponent resolved Rakdos. I had him dead to rights. Dead to rights. He top-decked Rakdos, he cast Rakdos, and he destroyed my entire board. All 5 creatures with a tail coin flip.
Amazing.
Yeah. And the best thing about it was he was very gracious, and he was just as amazed as I was. I asked to see the coin, right? I'm thinking to myself, okay, somebody planned on going Rakdos. Somebody knew they were going to bring Rakdos to the game, or maybe find him in one of their packs, and they brought a 2-tailed coin to the game just in case they got Rakdos, but it actually ended up being a real nickel. So anyway, pretty cool. Other standout cards and cards that are starting to scare me a lot in the standard meta as well. Judith, the Scourge Diva. You know that red-white weenies deck that was rolling around in standard for a while? The one that Andrew Ellenbogen ended up winning the Grand Prix with? Or excuse me, the Pro Tour.
Yeah, of course.
He ended up taking down the Pro Tour with that red-white weenie deck. Well, that is converted now, and I'm seeing this a lot in testing now. But it is converted to a Mardu deck using Judith.
Gross.
It is very gross. They are running Hero of Precinct 1. They are running Judith. They are running other multicolored spells, specifically in the removal package, the boost package. Judith gets you a token.
With the hero, it doesn't care if it's a creature card or not. It's just if it's multicolored.
Multicolored. They're running Judith. They're running Sky Knight Legionnaire, which is one that I posted in my Jeskai Humans deck. But I got to tell you, that deck is not performing the way that I thought it would. It was just too early, not enough consistent testing, but clearly Mardu is the way that it needs to be taken in terms of Hero of Precinct 1. But it's amazing, actually, how consistent it is. And then they cast the Heroic Reinforcements. They get another token. That token gains haste. They put 2 more tokens into play with the Heroic Reinforcements. They all get +1/+0 from Judith, and then they get +1/+1 from the Heroic Reinforcements, and the lethal swing generally comes on turn 5 or 6.
Gross.
it is incredibly consistent and incredibly good. And even in limited, in the Rakdos sealed games that I played against, Judith was an all-star.
Yeah, seems like it, man. For me, probably the best interactions that I had was actually with the Lizrog. He is absolutely hilarious. I was able to get down the Scuttlegator, adapt them, and then get down a creature with Riot, put the +1/+1 counter on him, and then play the Lizrog.
Yeah.
Remove those counters. What was that? 8 counters that got put on him?
It was beautiful, man.
So it ended up being like an 11/11 for 5 mana.
Yeah, it was great. That won you the game.
Yep, it did.
I saw that match. That was a grinder, too.
It was.
Down to the wire.
Yep. So there's some really hilarious interactions that you can do with the Simic synergies, and it really does kind of solidify the fact that the Lizrog is going to be that top-end card for whatever Simic Ascendancy deck that's going to be out there. It's too good because you're able to remove any number of +1 counters and then double that. So if you happen to have 10 +1/+1 counters out on your field, like let's say we're running like that Merfolk list where you were saying the enchantment that produces the hexproof Merfolk token.
Absolutely, with Deeproot Champion.
Yep. And then all of a sudden you're starting to get a bunch of counters on them. They can't remove them.
That's right.
Because they have hexproof. And then you play the Lizrog, remove all those counters, and now you have 20 counters just from that alone on your Lizrog, which then would trigger Simic Ascendancy. Something like that, I think it could be hilarious.
Yeah, it's an instant win with Simic Ascendancy.
Yep.
And in a lot of ways, it's simpler than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah.
The generation capability of +1/+1 counters right now in Standard with the release of Ravnica Allegiance is, I don't believe, fully tapped just yet, right? Pun intended. When I say fully tapped, I mean Kumena. Being able to tap 5 Merfolk creatures that you control and put a +1/+1 counter on each of them, right? When you're talking about some of the abilities that we have right now to be able to untap our creatures, and I'm going to save some of that tech for a deck list that'll be coming in the next couple weeks or so, because I believe that Simic Ascendancy can be broken, and I'm going to show you guys how.
Cool.
And this will be a much better, more crafted deck. We both pulled a Nikya of the old ways, and unfortunately, neither of us could really figure out a way to fit her in. You did. You jammed her in there.
No, I did. She actually did a lot of work for me.
Did she?
Yeah, she was one of the main reasons why I added the red.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure I was running, some counter spells and some kill spells and things like that. But I mainly tried to stick with creatures that had activated abilities that I could really abuse her ability with. For those who don't remember, Nikya of the Old Ways is a 5 mana 5/5 and Gruul that has the ability of whenever you tap a land for mana, add an additional mana of any color that land could produce. So basically it doubles your mana if you only have one of her out. Then you can't cast non-creature spells. So really using her to be able to, say, activate your adapt creature plus give one of your creatures flying by activating his ability. Or let's say you're running something like Eyes Everywhere, or your Lockets already on the battlefield. You can then use your mana more efficiently to be able to crack those. That's kind of what I was seeing with a lot of my stuff. And Nikya actually did some really good work for me. And if they didn't take care of her, she kind of took over the game, especially because I was able to do some things with like the Simic Guildmage, where I was able to remove counters and then readapt a creature and then remove counters later. And I'll be able to do this with just having a ton of mana available because of her. So I think she's going to have a place in the standard meta. I just don't know exactly where 100% she's going to be. Obviously, it's going to be in a very strong creature-heavy deck. Maybe it's something that she could be like the 5-drop for Dino's list or something like that. But I think she's going to have a place.
So the Azorius really underperformed at the pre-release. I had an opportunity to view or observe a couple of games. I didn't play an Azorius mage, but Azorius really underperformed in the games that I saw. It basically just kind of stagnated the board until they eventually got overrun by their opponent's aggro, right? Control doesn't do well in limited.
Unless there's a ton of support for it.
Or specifically wipes, right? Wipes, which there really aren't in this. In red, we had some.
Yeah, I was playing one. It was a 6-drop.
Rage, Boar, Scourge of the Rage Boar.
Yeah, there you go.
There it is.
And so it's 5 in a red, and it says it deals 4 damage to target creature, and then if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it then deals 2 damage to each other creature that player controls.
Mm-hmm.
So that is...
Good limited card.
It's a good limited card. I mean, it's not going to see any standard play. You can maybe see play in Commander if you really need like the damage output or something like that.
I just rolled my eyes.
But but really, it's a good limited card, and it technically was a board wipe. Most of the time I cast it. And then I did see Akaya's Wrath.
Yeah.
That did get me good once. I still ended up winning the game.
Oh, yeah.
But I did overcommit a little bit, and he got me pretty good.
Yeah. Orzhov ended up performing, I think, way, way, way better than
either of us thought it would.
Gruul and Simic.
Yeah, Orzhov was amazing. In fact, one of the best matchups against me was this little rink-a-dink Afterlife Death Touch Orzhov list.
Orzhov is white and black, by the way. Everybody.
Yep. Where it was literally nothing but commons and uncommons. I don't think I saw a single rare in his entire list.
Death Touchers.
Yeah, it was just nothing but Death Touchers and Afterlifers, and ways to get them back into your hand. And that's all he played, and he stomped the floor with me. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It's a really... Orzhov is really strong.
Yeah, that Pitiless Pontiff, right? One colorless, one white for a 2/2. You can pay a colorless, sacrifice another creature, and Pitiless Pontiff gains Death Touch and Indestructible until end of turn. That ended up being a destructive card.
Yeah, it's, my God, is that card amazing and limited, especially when you want to be sacrificing your creatures to be able to get the tokens, to be able to keep doing it over and over.
And we've got that common in Dead Revels, which your opponent was also playing that I saw in the game, and he had 2 copies of that common in Dead Revels. So he would swing in with one of his Afterlife Spirit creatures, ping you for 1, and then he would Dead Revels for the spectacle cost. Normally it costs 3 colorless and a black, return up to 2 target creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, but he was getting the spectacle cost for a colorless and a black.
Yep.
And so those Afterlife creatures were just coming back and coming back. And it ended up being an incredibly effective synergistic strategy, and it was all commons and uncommons.
Yeah. One of my favorite cards that I've actually saw played against me, I ended up winning the match, but it had some really good power. It was actually a common called Undercity Scavenger.
Yeah, I like that card a lot.
Yeah, for those who want to see like a pretty good write-up on the Pauper format, I just posted a list.
It's a great write-up.
Thank you. I just posted a list on Monday that kind of details the top 8 cards I think is going to break out into that format, and that you can find that article over at www.landsaygo.com. Again, that's www.landsaygo.com. And anyway, so for Undercity Scavenger, it's 3 and a black for a 3/3 Ogre Warrior. And it has, when it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice another creature. And if you do, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it, and then you scry 2. Wow. Okay, this card blew me away.
It was incredibly powerful.
Yeah. I mean, getting a 3/3 for 4, it's not great, but it's decent filler for limited and sealed. But being able to get a 5/5 for 4 that also can scry 2 for you,
yes,
that's
very
amazing.
Very good. Yes.
And it's one of those things where, like, sure, it can die to a lightning strike in response to the trigger or something like that, but still, this card, my God, it was really good. That scry 2 should not be underestimated. It definitely helped my opponent a lot.
And just in case you are a drafter and you are out there, one of the best combos that I saw from the common uncommon setups in terms of drafting or limited, specifically with Ravnica Allegiance, is Daggercaster, which is a red creature. It's a 2/3 Viashino Rogue for 3 colorless and a red. It says when Daggercaster enters the battlefield, it deals 1 damage to each opponent and 1 damage to each creature your opponents control. And at instant speed, we've got a black spell in Blade Brand, which is 1 colorless and a black that says target creature gains Death Touch until end of turn. Draw a card. We are talking about a board wipe there for 6 mana.
I think that also draws you a card.
That also draws you a card. Incredibly good interaction there. Either way, I would say, surprisingly, the most powerful guild, with the right packs, of course, but in a pre-release event like that, which has come and gone and will never come back again, but in future sealed games, limited games, draft environments, the most powerful combination, I believe, in Ravnica Allegiance, and you're entitled to your opinion, but I believe it's Orzhov.
I would heavily agree with that. Orzhov Gruul comes as a close second. Having the ability of having these hasting creatures is really good, and then having the ability just to make them beefy if you need it is very versatile. I definitely died to a hasty attack. I definitely should have held back a blocker, but I was kind of banking on the fact that I had killed all of his resources. Obviously, I was wrong. So
yeah, that's okay.
Having Gruul there as well is going to be a a good strategy for you in limited.
Simic and Rakdos tied for third with Azorius dead last.
Dead last.
In my opinion.
Yep.
So, yeah, pre-release was a great amount of fun. I really appreciated you getting out there with me on that Saturday. It's good for us to always make those events. Again, we've said it before in a previous main phase episode, and we'll probably continue to say it again. There is no better time to go play Magic than a pre-release event. That is a really great time to get somebody who you're interested in trying to help understand the game or want to get involved with the game. Get them out to one of these events. I cannot speak highly enough of the locations here in Kansas City, specifically Collector's Cache. Put on a great event for us.
I think that was our first pre-release there.
First pre-release there. Generally, we're going to Spanky's or we're going to 31st Century Games here in Kansas City, but Collector's Cache ended up being a really impressive environment. Every first Friday for Friday Night Magic at Collector's Cache, they do free pack Fridays. So each win gets you a free pack of Magic cards, and the entry to the Friday Night Magic
is free.
Is also free.
Yeah, it's always free every Friday, but the first Fridays, they give you free
Talk
packs.
about a cool community event.
Yep,
really good
cool
stuff. All right, so big shout out to the guys at Collector's Cache. Thanks a lot. We had some additional announcements, Debo. Some things with the ban and restricted announcement. And I'm going to really kind of let you dive into this one and, well, take it away.
Sure. All right. So for those who are unaware, KCI has been banned from the Modern format.
Kark Clan Ironworks.
The actual card, not another card from that deck.
The actual card
is banned from the Modern format.
Kark Clan Ironworks, a GP All-Star.
Yep.
A powerhouse of a deck.
Yep.
Which has been running rampant at GPs and Magic Fests over the course.
Which the article actually kind of goes into that it was only like 15% of the meta was playing it, but yet it was getting
shocking
consistently top 4 in the top 8, 6 in the top 8 type of finishes.
Wow.
And I mean, imagine that, only 15%, and it's having that level of success.
Wow.
I mean, they were saying that.
I know it's a powerful deck.
Yeah, it's extremely powerful, and it was really hard for them to quantify how powerful it was because it's such a difficult deck to pilot that there's so many like arcane interactions with
excessively arcane regarding mana specifically, right, and windows, timing.
Right, because Kark Clan Ironworks. For those who don't know, it's a 4-mana artifact that says sacrifice an artifact, you get 2 colorless mana. Well, the fact that it's a mana ability means that you can sacrifice all of your artifacts at the same time. So you don't have to wait for, like, I sacrifice this trigger then happens, then I can sacrifice in response. No, you can sacrifice them all at the same time. So it became one of those things where it was like these really arcane rules were popping up where these various interactions and interactive states needed to happen, and the judges needed to be very on point with it. It was very difficult for judges, very difficult for players. It was very difficult to even pilot. It was also very similar to Eggs in the fact that it's very boring to watch.
Yeah.
After like your first 1 or 2 times watching it.
It represents a shift in the holistic viewership of Magic the Gathering for people to sit there and watch these incredibly long turns with extremely complex interactions, or sometimes a sophisticated pilot or an experienced pilot may be moving too quickly even for the casters to be able to reliably relay that information to the viewing audience. You're talking about a level of frustrations with both the viewership and the players who are sitting on the other side of the table from a KCI pilot who is not enjoying themselves.
Right. And then on top of that too, so like I said before, it was very hard for them to quantify how powerful this deck was. So they couldn't trust, because it's such a difficult deck to pilot, they couldn't trust Magic Online data like they usually do with ban and restricted announcements. Instead, they had to rely on actual paper play. So R&D would bust it out, they would play it, they would have to watch its performance at GPs, things like that. And
it just dominated Grand Prix Oakland.
You're right. The only other deck they said that was having those top 4 finishes, or the 4 in the top 8 type finishes, was Blue-White Control.
Okay.
And
I mean, that makes sense.
It makes sense. But the fact that KCI also had such a strong win percentage in its first match.
Yes.
Right? So it's not even including sideboard, but in its first match. And then its resilience against the main sideboard pieces that are in the meta right now. It was pretty much a clear-cut thing where they needed to just get rid of the problem.
Didn't you say that they were also considering banning Mox Opal?
And Ancient Stirrings.
Ancient Stirrings.
Yep. So Ancient Stirrings is one of those cards where actually both Mox Opal and Ancient Stirrings.
Ancient Stirrings would have dramatically affected Mono Green Tron as well.
Or Green Red Tron.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, and also other decks, sometimes Affinity plays it. It gets played in Hardened Scales decks, that artifact-based Hardened Scales deck. So it's one of those things where they had considered banning those, but it was the fact that it's not just like one archetype that's based around Ancient Stirrings and Mox Opal. There's still like quite a few different archetypes that show up, but it still has a very restrictive deck building restriction on when you play them.
Yeah, it's got to be specific.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was the reasoning for not banning those two. But I know for a fact that people have been calling for a banning of both of those cards. But I think KCI is
Opal and Ancient Stirrings?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah. People think that's just too powerful.
What a bunch of crybabies.
So
you know what I say? Unban everything.
Unban everything. But that's,
I'm not joking.
But I think KCI was the right pick, but still, it's pretty huge that they ended up banning it.
That's big news, man.
Yeah.
That is big news for a banned and restricted announcement.
They also, just so you know, for Pauper players out there, they have not yet made a decision about banning either Gush or Foil. They understand that could be a huge potential problem.
What do those cards do?
So Gush is, I think, 4 in a blue or 3 in a blue, something like that. Instant speed.
4 in a blue.
4 in a blue. Instant speed. Draw 2 cards.
Yes.
Or you can pick up 2 islands and cast it without paying its mana cost.
That's correct.
And draw 2 cards.
Nasty.
And Foil is a 2 blue counter target spell unless you discard an island and another card, and then you can cast it without paying its mana cost. So obviously what the interaction is, you can Gush, pick up your 2 islands, draw into your foil, discard the other card or your 2 islands to then foil their big spell. So it's a cool interaction, but extremely powerful in those blue Delver lists and mono blue tempo lists.
Oh, mono blue.
Yep.
Will you ever stop being cheesy? No.
Now they did actually ban a couple of cards from Pauper.
Okay. What were they?
So they banned Hada Freeblade, Spatial Contortion, and Circle of Flame. And the main reason why is because they were never really supposed to be in the Pauper format. They were printed as commons, as promos, and not an actual like set. So that's their main reasoning for banning those from the format.
Hada Freeblade, 1 white, 0/1. Whenever Hada Freeblade or another ally enters the battlefield under your control, you may put a +1/+1 counter on Hada Freeblade.
Mm-hmm.
Spatial Contortion from Oath of the Gatewatch. 1 colorless, 1 waste. Instant speed, target creature gets +3, -3 until end of turn. Incredible spell. And then Circle of Flame, 1 colorless, 1 red from M15. It's an enchantment. Whenever a creature token without flying attacks you or a planeswalker you control, Circle of Flame deals 1 damage to that creature. So we got a Caltrops style effect there. Only it's not an ETB trigger, it's an attack trigger. So I understand. Multiple Circle of Flames in play in a Pauper style format becomes extremely problematic.
That's right. Yep. So that was kind of the major announcements that happened. Yeah.
What do you think of my philosophy that Nexus of Ban is Nexus of Fate is going to catch a ban here pretty shortly?
I think it's something they need to monitor. When that card was printed, I don't think they realized how good it was going to be.
Have you tested against any of the Wilderness Reclamation decks with Nexus of Fate?
No, but I understand that that's heinous.
It is apocalyptic.
Yeah.
It really is.
I mean, imagine also playing that with that new instant speed, shuffle your library, draw 7 cards, right? Like shuffle your graveyard into your library, draw 7 cards. That's heinous. And because of the Wilderness Reclamation, that's a triggered ability.
That's right.
So the trigger goes on the stack, you then tap your mana, it then untaps. So if you have multiple of those out there,
that's correct.
They stack.
That's right.
And so being able to, I'm going to pay 7, draw 7 cards, untap, pay 7, get an extra turn.
Untap again.
Untap again.
Cast an SSB draw spell.
And then
before the end step concludes, take your extra turn, untap, do some more shenanigans, run out your board, end step. You've been able to find another Nexus. All your lands are tapped out. Untap them. Tap them again. Cast another Nexus. It is oppressive.
And then also running that with like the interaction with the flip Azcanta.
So
you can then dig, and then you untap all your lands, including your Azcanta. You can then dig again, find whatever you need. That is gross, and that card is scary. It's only an uncommon from this set, And I think it's probably one of the most broken cards that they printed.
I have tested against an Esper Primal Amulet deck that is running Revitalizes, Counterspells, Nexus of Fate, and Teferi. And I have to tell you, once a couple of the Primal Amulets are flipped and they're able to cast multiple Nexuses using the Wilderness Reclamation to copy the Nexus and take 2 turns and then start just doing it again, it becomes a soft lock into a hard lock. It is turn after turn of Teferi ticking up, drawing a card, untapping 2 lands, untapping all their lands, casting a draw spell, copying it with the Primal Amulet, sometimes twice if they have more than one flipped amulet. And then they start putting 3 stacks of every sorcery and instant speed draw spell that they put in play. And the Nexus just gets shuffled back in and they take infinite turns and they just sit there and lock you out of the game. Did they anticipate it to be as powerful as it is? Yes.
I don't know.
Were they expecting it to be as broken as quickly as it is in Standard? I don't know. But I got to tell you, when you're playing against, again, a sophisticated pilot who understands what they need to do, and we have access to the number of board wipes that we do in Esper right now, it becomes nearly impossible to play against.
Yeah, I honestly don't think that they anticipated Nexus of Fate being as good as it was.
It's Wilderness Reclamation that ruins it.
Right.
Nexus of Fate is just a Nexus of Fate. Okay, right. I get it. Right.
Well, I mean, it still dominated Standard when the blue-white control list was out with Dominaria.
Yes.
So, I mean, actually, did Nexus come out?
It was Bant Turbo. Bant Turbo Fog running Nexus.
That's right, because Nexus was M19.
That's right.
Yeah. So
it was Bant Turbo Fog when Kaladesh Block was still in. We had this great Bant Turbo Fog list when M19 first dropped with Nexus, and that deck was dominating Standard.
Yep. And actually, we could actually rebuild that deck now if we wanted to.
Sure.
With some of these extra abilities like the Wilderness Reclamation.
Absolutely. I mean, but again, you'll see a number of those decks come out, but it's just as pasty as Karklan Ironworks.
Yep.
You just sit there and watch your opponent play, especially if you're hell bent.
Yep.
Trying to get there. But yeah, still cool deck. Not poo-pooing it, but I'm saying it either.
It's tough. It's strong.
Yeah, Wilderness Reclamation is a real card. It is a real card, and it is here to stay. So, what do you think of that community submission from yesterday?
I think it's actually really awesome.
It ended up being a very impressive Jund deck. Yeah. I have not really seen this style of low interaction so far with Jund. The deck that I'm working on right now in Jund is Jund Dragons, and it is a beast. Totally a force to be reckoned with. But Cirque du Soleil is an amazing deck here. Get on www.lancego.com. Let's get the commentary and the conversations going regarding this deck. I actually think that these types of synergies and some of these interactions are going to be things that we will see in the competitive meta. And my hat goes off to Andrew John Capuan for this particular deck submission. It is very, very tight. Review that article. Take that for a spin on Arena. And let us know what you think. We'll probably have some interactions by Andrew at some point. Come on, Andrew, read the article. Listen to the podcast. Love your deck, man. It's very, very good.
Yeah, it's a very cool deck. And again, one of the things that prompted him to send it to us was actually a question about mana base.
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't so much like the creatures or anything like that. It was more so he just wasn't sure if he was running the right type of lands, the number of lands, the right amount of each color, that type of a thing. So we love fielding those questions, and we love trying to help you guys doctor up your decks. We want your decks to be
And I
successful.
made a solid mention of that mana base and even a couple of tweaks to it in the article. So check that out if you haven't already.
Perfect.
What do you want to end with here, Debo? So kind of a short episode today.
Yeah, kind of a short episode. So what's going to be your week 1 deck?
I don't know.
You don't know yet?
What's going to be your week 1 deck?
I think I'm going to take...
What are you taking tomorrow?
Red Black Burn 2.0. So for those who don't know, again, on lancego.com, I had a Primal Punishment deck that was running 4 Sword Point Diplomacy, 4 Risk Factor, and then a bunch of Burn and Loss of Life spells. And then also at this point, it was Primal Amulet as a means to double up those Punisher effects and things like that. However, with the release of Ravnica Allegiance, I think I'm going to tweak the deck a bit. In fact, I know I'm going to tweak the deck a bit to add things like Skewer the Critics
That
in that
deck.
Yep. I think I'm going to add actually a couple of creatures to it.
Theater of Horrors.
Theater of Horrors is actually going to just completely replace Primal Amulet in this deck.
Great call.
And then I may even get Light at the Stage.
Sure.
Bashino, Pyromancer, the Lava Runner.
1 copy of Electrodominance.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Why not? Yeah, why not?
So-
1 copy of Electrodominance. Why not?
So I think it's going to be a really fun deck, and I can't wait to actually post the write-up on it on Friday.
I'll tell you what I'm taking.
What's that?
I'm going to take Jund Dragons.
Jund Dragons? Okay.
Because the Scaragon Hellkite in testing has proven to be an absolute powerhouse.
Awesome.
Just a total powerhouse in terms of board control, damage to any target, and my mana capabilities in that deck have ended up being pretty impressive. Plus, I want to get some of those Jund Dragons out there, man. Specifically Vevictus, right? Daragaz. I want to get Daragaz out there. 7/7 flying haste trampler, becomes an egg when he dies and comes right back. Here he is.
Returns, yep.
Yeah, here he comes again. But anyway, I'm going to try that first. I know we've got some really spicy brews that are coming down the pipe.
We also got another deck list submission by Dr. Manatee. It was Blue-Green Fish. So we will have a write-up of that one eventually here. We just have a couple
You know
of things
what?
that took precedence.
You know what? You're right. Dr. Manatee did drop another list. And just in honor of that, I'm going to go ahead and take his Blue-Green Fish list to Friday Night Magic this week.
Nice. That'd be a good thing to include in the write-up to see like kind of how it performed for you and maybe the tweaks that you'd make to it.
I think Dr. Manatee, just for you, we're going swimming with the fishes this Friday, my friend. Yeah, Friday Night Magic, we'll get you some updates on that next week. We appreciate you guys tuning in each week. Again, a short episode this week as there are a number of mitigating factors prohibiting us from discussing Magic with you much longer this Thursday, but we will see you next week and each week after that. Be sure to subscribe to the site. Follow us on socials, join us for the conversation, and submit your deck lists for a review as well. And then if you get out to GPs in your local area, even reviews of your GPs and the decks and how they did at those sites, let us know.
Yep, that's right. And for those social accounts, it's at LandsayGo1 for Twitter. And for Facebook, it's just LandsayGo. And we will be opening up a Facebook group called the Sideboard relatively soon. So that way you guys can start chatting with each other and hopefully bring out some cool interactions and things like that among the community there. We appreciate you guys coming out and spending your Thursdays with us, and we look forward to seeing you next time. So this is Debo and Jeremy, signing out.
Holla, 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 holla.